Servus and hello, my name is Luis from TNH Group. In this video I will show you my Resin 3 printing workflow and how to get beautiful results with your Resin 3 printer. First we will talk about how the printing actually works, like how the things in there actually work, and then we will go into a step-by-step guide. I'm using my Uniformation GK2 for this. Thank you Uniformation for allowing me to get this for a discounted price. I can give you a part of the discount I received as well. If you use the code Lewis you will get $80 off, and all of the details are linked in the video description as well as the website. And yeah, it's a lovely printer. I really like it. I already made a video once about this. There will be another one featuring this, and there will be a half-year and 1-year update. But that is all due into the future. Also, there will be some tips and tricks in the end about Resin 3 printing. So yeah, let's head into the video. MSLA stands for Masked Stereolithography, and it's a form of Resin 3 printing. It combines traditional stereolithography with digital light processing. So here's how it works. First, an MSLA printer uses a UV light source that emits UV light through an LCD screen, or nowadays a mono LCD screen. This screen acts as a mask, as in masked stereolithography, to create an image on the screen that then cures the resin in the vat. And that is done layer by layer, and therefore it is printing in 2.5D, so 3D. The UV light cures the liquid resin into a solid layer, which is then picked up by the build plate, which removes it from the FEP or PFA or release film or release liner, and then moves it up and down again so the next layer can be cured. Each of these layers is cured in a whole layer, so you don't need to draw things like in conventional FDM printing or laser printing, which is advantageous if you print the whole platform. And nowadays the pixel size is usually from 20 to 30 microns, essentially as sharp as the eye can see. That means that you can print big batches of things in a short amount of time. The trade-off is that MSLA printers are typically smaller than other types of printing, that being FDM printers. They can easily go up to 500 or even bigger. 500 by 500 is that. It's really hard for the MSLA printers to be this big, and these big machines cost a lot of money compared to if you get a good kit for a big FDM printer like the Red Rig. It's not that expensive compared to a resin machine, which has fewer moving components. But the LCD screen makes the price go up. Also, the LCD screens and the UV lights degrade over time, which need to be replaced. If all of that was so bad, we wouldn't use it for producing miniatures at a scale. Currently, one of the best ways to produce miniatures without using injection molding or other injection methods such as COcast. Because the COcast machine, last time I checked, was about 50,000, and I can get a MSLA printer for 250 or 300 bucks. But all of that is to no avail if we don't have things to print. So let's see how one makes or prepares the models that we print to get good looking prints. The 3D model is the most important thing when it comes to Resin 3D printing, because if there are no details in the model, it is no use to have a printer that can replicate features up to precision of 20 microns. It's really important to get a good high quality 3D model that either comes from somebody else or you make it. If you want to make those yourself, you can use software such as Blender, ZBrush, Maya and others. There are multiple kinds of sculpting softwares. Yeah, if you want a more parametric approach for engineering parts, all of the engineering parts are usually made in parametric modeling programs that are usually, we in the maker world use either Fusion 360 or SolidWorks. There are multiple kinds of other softwares that people use, but these are the most used parametric CAD softwares that I know of. Most of these softwares have one thing in common, and that is that they are fairly pricey. I know of Fusion that they have like a maker license where you have 10 editable projects at any given time, and you are not allowed to make money with those designs. The alternative to that is downloading models from other people that they have made, from Printables, My Mini Factory, from various patrons, which there are like 1 million of, and from varying degrees of quality, of course. The most important thing to get from these websites is an STL or an OBJ file or 3MF file. 99.99% they are that file format, and because that's what the slicers use. It should be trivial, but I will say it anyways. Most of the modern or like bigger kinds of Patreons already have pre-supported files, which we'll get to in just a moment, the supporting. But pre-supported models are a good way, especially as a beginner, to get into the hobby, because it's one less variable that you have to control to get right. And I really like pre-supported minis that are, like, from good source, because it saves my clients money. Because my time costs money if somebody asks me to print something, and if I have to support 40 different miniatures, it is going to add up. If you make files of your own or get them commissioned, you obviously have to support them yourself, just like I do. So let's head into the magical world of the slicers next. In the world of slicers, there are two main players with some side players. The main slicers that we use in Resin 3D printing are Lychee and Cheetobox. They have both been around for quite some time. Nowadays there are some other slicers, such as Tango Slicer, I believe it's from Elegoo or endorsed by Elegoo. I use Lychee Pro because I use it commercially. It has features that I want, so I pay for it. You don't have to pay for it. You can use other slicers. The workflow works with other slicers as well, just not the profiles that will be in the video description. Importing a model is pretty straightforward, which we have to do first. You can drag and drop files here. Okay, let's import a model right here. And so we want to print this model with our printer. The printer cannot print in mid-air, and therefore we need support structures, which we do in the Prepare tab. But before we do that, we have to prepare it in the Layout tab, because we want to move it onto, or kind of tilt it back by a couple of degrees and off-center it a little bit, so these supports have a better angle to connect to. This is what you do with normal looking minis, or like normal, like human soldier looking minis. If we had another thing like dragons or thicker body entities or whatever, you would have to choose a different orientation. In general, you want thicker parts towards the build plate, and that is the bottom, because this will be printed upside down. Now it is time to support our miniatures if we have a non-pre-supported mini. And for that we will head into the Prepare tab. What I recommend is that you use auto supports for your first prints, and then learn from there. In general, it is better to know how to hand support and then place either fully hand support minis, or how I use it. I use the automatic supports with all of my settings that will also be linked in the description, and then hand place some supports in order to get a good mini. I mainly use light supports, and I have calibrated my resins and my support settings as to leave very little dent marks in the minis. If I get bigger models that are thicker and have not hollowed parts near, or like in general, I tend to use some medium, and very rarely I use heavy supports. Now, they are used as anchors to kind of anchor the model you're trying to support to the build platform, so it doesn't detach. There are whole video series about the topic of supporting, so I'll not be covering it here. If you have questions, ask them in the comments, but there are many videos on YouTube showing you how to do that. Auto support nowadays is good, so use it, don't be dumb. So let's say we have supported a lot of minis and that we want to print. You can save Lychee scenes where you have imported a lot of models as new Lychee scenes, so you can just import it and then keep on working on things. I've done that with most of the models that I have. I have supported them in Lychee and saved it as a Lychee scene, and I've also exported them as an STL, so it doesn't need to open so the file is smaller and it's easier to open and work with. We've imported the models and they are all supported, and we want to print. before we do that, we need to check if all things are kind of set up correctly, and we need to select the resin, the printer and the resin. The printing tab is in Light at least, as the printers are up here. I will use the Uniformation GK2. I will use my Ceratec Fast Navy Gray 20 micron profile. It still needs some tuning, but it prints fairly fast and gives me great results. You can tweak these however you want. I will just put mine in the description, and then we go to export. I use the Uniformation GK2 along with Ceratec Fast Gray, which is resin that prints fairly fast, and the GK2 can print fairly fast because of the heating function, which I really like. And it just makes sure that I can control all the things that I set in here more easily, so I can have a better result with the 20 micron layers that I choose because it looks better. To calibrate the resin and kind of configure it how you want, people and I recommend the cones of calibration. They are linked in the description. There are multiple kinds of videos about them. I just suggest use that. I use my experience, and I feel for the things, and if I have failures, I will adjust accordingly. Now we choose the correct printing parameters. We've chosen the printer, the resin. I use anti-aliasing, and you can play around with that. I will talk more about that in later parts of the video. And then we hit Explore Slices to File, which will bring up where you will put it. I will put it in my printing queue, and then it will kind of render your models into all kinds of layers. Now we will go where the printers are, and I will show you how to set up the printer. Now let's set up the printer. We want a couple of things before we start pulling the resin into the vat. We want a clean screen and ideally a screen protector. The GK2 has a protector pre-installed, a spare one is included, and they are really cheap on the website. We want a vat with no holes and an intact PFA release liner. Spares are usually included, and I also sell some if you are interested. Check the description. We want a leveled bed to the screen. The GK2 comes pre-leveled from the factory, which I checked and it was indeed level, and I have not had an issue since. And last but not least, we want a clean build plate. What I mean is cured resin that may still be on there from past print jobs. Liquid resin doesn't matter, but a screen should be replaced when it died due to age, not human failure. Give your resin of choice a really good shake if it's coming out of a bottle, or give it a good stir in the vat. The GK2 makes this real easy, as they provide a hard rubber spatula in the package which is designed for this process. But you can buy these things in normal stores as well. This is from IKEA. Now transfer the file with your desired means. I use USB because A, Wi-Fi transmit does not work yet, or I have not upgraded my firmware in order to support it, and B, because the Wi-Fi down here is not good, which I am going to fix in an upcoming video. After the files have been transferred, we print to eagerly wait for it to finish in X amount of hours. So we don't have to do much during the printing process once it has started. There's a great advantage to coming down here at least once or twice, which I usually, of course I do that, to check on the printer whether it still has enough resin, which you should put in enough anyways, and to see if there are some failures that occur. Typically with machines that are quality built, nothing happens, and that's why I don't come down here. On cheaper machines, it is good to go to check on the printers once in a while. So now our print is complete, and we want to move onto the post-processing. And for that we will have to remove the build plate from the printer and then remove the models from the build plate, which we are going to do right now. I use a metal spatula for removing the prints from the build plate. If you have set your bottom exposure correctly, they will come off pretty easily. If not, it is a bit harder, but there's a solution for that called flex plates. I recommend Wham Bam because they have high quality stuff, but I have not had the need for that in quite a while, and my production printers do not have them at the moment. After that, the excess liquid resin needs to be removed with a solvent. I use and recommend ethanol, and it's even endorsed by Ceratec. It is cheaper when bought in bulk and not an off-product of the oil industry, which is a plus. I will link a shop for all the Germans in the description. As you can see, I have a multi-step wash to ensure that the ethanol stays good for longer with an ultrasonic cleaner in the middle. I mainly use manual washing as the washing station has a broken motor and I've not gotten around to fixing that. We go from left to right and remove the supports with hot ethanol from the ultrasonic cleaner before the last wash. This can be a fire hazard if you do not know what you're doing. If unsure, please use water. After the last wash, we either let it dry completely or air dry. After the last wash, we either let it air dry completely or use a heat gun to aid the drying process. After the Mini is dry and not tacky anymore, place the clean print in a UV curing station or under a UV lamp to fully harden the resin. Curing times vary depending on the resin and the light source, but typically range from a few minutes to several minutes. I put it in for 5 minutes, that does the trick. This curing station is from Elegoo. I have put my old curing station on support curing duty. As you can see, 5 minutes and it is done. These are not tacky anymore, perfectly cured, pretty minis. So here are some rapid fire tips and tricks that may improve your Resin 3 prints or the printing experience in general. The first thing is that if you've bought a Resin 3 printer in the last years, it is likely to have come with a screen protector just like the GK2. They are really useful to prevent oopsies from happening and then destroying your screen. The thing is, sometimes they can be very expensive and otherworldly expensive. In that case, you can use a tablet screen protector to protect your LCD screen, because tablets have LCD screens as well. I made a video about that. If you are interested, check the eye, and it is also linked in the description. I've mentioned that before, but if you want higher quality prints, you need to choose a lower layer height. That's why I print at 20 microns and not 50 microns. So like things like shoulder pads have a smoother transition, and I also use anti-aliasing, which you've seen if you've watched the slicing part, to make edges a little bit rounder. Of course, you lose a little bit of detail, but I can see the cloth that is sculpted into minis which I print. So when it comes to hollowing, especially if you have bigger printers or bigger models, and also bigger printers for the bigger models, I do not do a lot of it. I even print the large minis and dragons fully, like full, because one, it makes the product feel better. It's not a huge difference of material actually, and if I hollow things, I leave a fairly thick wall, and remember to rinse it well and cure the inside of the models, otherwise it could crack. One of the most important things is finding the right resin that for your application. That is, if you need strong parts, you obviously need a stronger resin that has like poorer fast printing qualities than Ceratec Fast, for example, which is fairly liquid. It's good for miniatures because it's sturdy enough. If like a mini falls from chest height onto the concrete floor, it will likely break. Yeah, we're playing with teeny tiny miniatures, it shouldn't happen, but I'm working on a better formula for that, where we mix things, and yeah, just find a good supplier, and there are bulk sales often, and that's where I usually pick up my resin as well. I will start experimenting with mixing resins in a later video, I just mentioned that, and I will try out more resins if I get around to it, but I mainly use the Ceratec resins because I trust them and they have high quality, and they are not that expensive. And my last tip is, if you want a successful print, speed is not everything. It's a lot of marketing and a little bit of truth. Yes, I can print my minis way faster than I currently am, but there's a thing to pushing a machine to its limits and expecting it to be really reliable. That's where you usually increase the part quality, so you can have high speed printing with good quality, and it just makes everything expensive. Especially on the cheaper machines, I run them fairly fast, but not terribly ultra room printing fast, because I want a reliable outcome. And if I lose like 10 or 20% on the speed but gain 50% in reliability, I'm willing to take that offer. So we've went from acquiring the models to importing it into the slice, supporting it, slicing it, and then sending it to the printer, removing it from the build plate once it's done, checking on the printing process a couple of times, and then washing it and curing it, and we've arrived at pretty miniatures. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you've liked this video, feel free to give me a like and support my cause. Subscribing is not necessary, but it would be a great help for this channel. And in the end, I want to extend a special thanks to Tech and Uniformation. Tech because I am affiliated with them, just like Uniformation, but Uniformation sent me the printer. I'm not that much affiliated with Tech, but I have a code if you want to use their resins. It would be nice. And if more people buy from, like, if I give them enough traffic, I may have some leverage so I can test out more things for you, and then we all have a better life in the 3D printing world. That's it. I hope you print something, and if you have no print failures, I will see you in the next video. Tschüss und auf Wiedersehen.